have you done that? And I heard you already looked at some other places, so I thought that was the track.
Yeah, it would probably take too long to answer it all, but yes. And just so folks know, in reality, where we are positioned and given the politics, the stage that we're in right now, without outside financial support, both in terms of grants and other forms of investment, we probably wouldn't exist. So there's a hardcore balance between us, which is really not sustainable. So it's a challenge that we have between outside, finance meeting folks from outside the state, and a tremendous degree of volunteer labor, right? And then there's a high degree of self-exploitation that we baked into our model, but that can't sustain itself forever either, right? So these are some challenges that we have and things that we're trying to work our way out of, just so everybody's very clear about what our strengths and weaknesses are. And what like there has to be a period when certain types of sacrifices end, and then you get prepared for other types of sacrifices that come. So I think we're in that period of that high level of self-exploitation has to end, and another level of different types of sacrifices have to kind of kick in, right? The piece around non-unionized workers, that's the vast majority in our area. And for us to be clear, it's in part, in truth, trying to open up a strategy in Jackson which actually will give more power to unions rather than less. It's a struggle to get people to understand that within the union federations. But so it's a strategy of patience, but it doesn't negate the point of the vast majority of people who work in Jackson are not in unions, don't even know anything about unions at all. It's just not a normal part of the vocabulary. And the larger thing that we've been trying to articulate at base, and we want to just be point blunt about it, is trying to create, more like an IWW type of an orientation, which is, is not divided by sector, it's not divided by trade.
I don't mean like non-unionized work. I mean workers who are organized through like worker centers or other organizations or other types of formations that are outside of unions. So maybe it's a different situation in Jackson, but
well, even there, it's very limited.
Yeah.
Even there, I mean, we have the Mississippi Worker Center for Human Rights, which is now primarily concentrated up in the Delta region, and it suffered from a couple of years now of some political reprisals from how they were set up and the choices that they made. So that's an ally to us. You got the Mississippi Immigrant Rights Alliance, which does a lot of organizing, or labor organizing of a particular type, but it's very thin in our area. And so it's like us trying to fill a vacuum. Right now I would say we're doing it more in a conceptual way and putting the idea out than we actually have the capacity to fulfill. So that's a challenge that we're gonna have to try to figure out. Part of that's the finance question. Do we have enough to pay more organizers? Because it's not like there's a lack of folks who either need jobs or can't do it, but we don't have the resources to pay everybody what they need at this stage of the game. The People's Assembly is in a period of struggle right now. Part of the thing, again, this is just me speaking for myself, not for anybody else, for the organization. But I think some of the conceptualization of it is in, I don't think, it's in contest. The way some of it is being kind of structured now, we are doing assemblies of our own through the Human Rights Institute, and then there's two other groups that are doing assemblies. I think the proliferation of different groups doing assemblies is not a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing. But I think the piece for me that I think is a challenge is to what extent is it independent of the government. In my view, the assembly should always be independent of the government. And some people view it should be tied to the government. So there's a struggle that's going on there.
When I read the book, I mean, co-ops have always struggled with the idea that, well, you develop additional money, you build greater wealth, you give people a greater say at the workplace, but it's not connected to a sort of larger political vision or political strategy necessarily. And when I read the book, it seemed that you had theoretically, or at least thoughtfully said, we have to take a political action. We can't just do it on the economic level. And people's assemblies were an element of that, both educating people to get involved, giving them agency, giving them a sense that their ideas are important and count, and feeding it into the political system. And that seemed like a step forward in terms of how co-ops are developing to have political impact.
That's,
But-
we still committed to that,
Right,
but
but-
you check in with us in a couple of years and see how it worked. How it's working.
Sure.
And there was one other question that I think it was here, that I didn't write down properly.
I was just asking how you balance the need to like teach cooperative behaviors and roles and things like that with the need for the teaching process itself to be
Right,
cooperative.
right. Man, that's a tough question.